been a lot of speculation on the island being heaven or hell, but it seems more like a battleground for Jacob and his nemesis. In the Bible, Satan's considered the ruler of earth until Jesus takes the power from him. He may consider his home the world he once ruled, but had it stripped from him by Jacob. Remember last week I talked about the God versus Satan theory in correlation to Jacob in the Man in Black. In this episode, the nemesis tells Ben he grew tired of my company. This could be a reference to the Paradise Lost theory that Satan tried to outgrow God and rebelled and was cast into the fire. Maybe Smokey's ratcheting chain sound comes into play here. Maybe it signifies his bondage to the island. The Man in Black goes outside as everyone holds a gun to him. Richard screams out to them, "Don't shoot!" So why doesn't Richard want him to be shot? Well, maybe Flock is a judge on the island. Maybe he can't kill anyone unless they're guilty, and firing a weapon at him makes them guilty. Richard also knows that attacking him is ineffective and will only make him turn into the smoke monster, which will put all of them in danger. The nemesis then says to Richard that it's good to see you without your chains. Richard then knows that Locke is actually the Man in Black now. Now what does fake Locke mean by this? Well, one idea that isn't so literal is that he's actually a slave or servant of Jacob, and this keeps him alive indefinitely. Maybe with Jacob dying, this makes it so he's not enslaved and gets him out of his chains. Maybe this means he'll start aging. But the more literal idea is that he was actually a slave or prisoner on the Black Rock. One idea people have had about Richard is that he could represent Joseph, the son of Jacob in the Bible. Joseph was sold into slavery, but eventually became the leader of Egypt. Like I talked about last week, it seems somewhat clear that the Man in Black represents Esau. Also, Jacob had a son named Benjamin, whose mother died during childbirth, just like Ben Linus's mother. The nemesis goes Steven Seagal on Richard and yells to everyone else, "I'm very disappointed with all of you," and then walks past the real Locke's corpse. An idea I touched on last week is that Jacob could actually be the evil one, and the Man in Black could actually be the good one. Now, this is just a different idea, but it would explain why the nemesis said, "I'm very disappointed in all of you." If the others were following or worshiping a false god, it would make the real God angry, and with the God and Satan comparisons I talked about last week, it would make sense. Okay, now that I'm done talking about the Smokey/statue/nemesis part of the island and the story, I'm going to be talking about the temple part of the island that happened this episode. Kate wakes up and realizes that they're in the present time, no longer in the 70s, because the hatch is completely obliterated, just as it was after Desmond turned the failsafe key. This means that they're matched up in time with Flock's group. Miles, Jack, Sawyer, Hurley, and Jen all wake up and hear Juliet crying for help down below. After some time, Sawyer gets down to her, but she's dying. Juliet mumbles something about getting coffee sometime and smiles as she says, "We can go Dutch." She then seems to realize where she is, and her last words are, "I have to tell you something important." Then she croaks. It could be that she was flashing between worlds, kind of like Desmond in The Constant, which would explain why she asked, "Where am I?" Meanwhile, at the van down by the river, Hurley is tending to Saeed when Jacob appears from the jungle. He tells Hurley that he died an hour ago, and then tells him that he needs to take Saeed and the guitar case he had previously given him to the temple. Then Jack comes, he tends to Saeed, and realizes that Saeed's gonna die, until Hurley tells him that Jacob told him that they can save Saeed by bringing him to the temple. So the group leaves for the temple, guided by Jin, while Sawyer and Miles stay behind to bury Juliet. After she's buried, Sawyer orders Miles to communicate with her in order to find out what important news she wanted to give him. So Miles does his ghost-busting thing with her. We can hear the engine and the turbulent sounds from the flash sideways flight during this ordeal, strangely. Miles finishes and tells Sawyer that all she said was, "It worked." I don't think the "it worked" statement was the message she wanted to tell Sawyer before she died. It may have been what her dead self realized, but while she was alive, at the very end she was confused. I mean, unless she figured everything out in less than a second, that's not what the message was. But who knows though. So the rest of the group goes towards the temple and head through a hole in the wall. Inside, they find Montan's arm, yummy, and takes a book titled Fear and Trembling, a book that talks about ethics and morality, also faith. And one by one, they're captured by the others in the darkness, but before they are, we can hear whispers. Alright, there's two sets of whispers here, the one from Kate's abduction scene and the one right before Jack was abducted. I'll start with Kate's first, but keep in mind that what you're about to hear, there's a lot of music in it, there's a lot of sound effects and heavy breathing, and so it won't be super clear, but it's going to be the clearest you'll be able to find out there. Special thanks to Tiki Box from the Fuselage for deciphering these. Okay, so Kate's scene's been split up into 4 channels of whispers. Here's the first one. Now here's the second channel. Okay, here's the third channel. And lastly, the fourth channel. Okay, next up we have Jack's scene. They're also broken up into 4 channels, so here's the first. Now for the second channel. Okay, here's the third channel. And lastly, channel 4. Okay, those are all the whispers that happened during these scenes that were in the left and right channels of audio. Now, usually in the middle channel of audio, it's reserved 99% of the time for the main actors' voices. But in this case, there was 3 whispers, and they were in backwards English, and they were kind of hard to hear, but they've been cleaned up, reversed, and here they are transcribed for you guys. Here's the first one. Now here's the second set. And finally, the last one. So the others take the group to the temple and are introduced to the Japanese leader of that particular group named Dogen and his translator Lennon. Cindy is there and tells Dogen that they were on the same flight that she was, and when Dogen tells them to be shot, she doesn't seem to care at all, like she's one of them now. But before they're shot, Hurley yells that Jacob sent them. So Dogen opens the guitar case, a big ankh is inside, he smashes it open, and inside is a piece of paper. Dogen reads it and asks for each of their names. Hurley demands to know what the paper says, and Lennon tells him that the temple dwellers will all be in trouble if Saeed dies. Now, what did this piece of paper say? Well, we know that it was in an ankh, and that an ankh in Egyptian culture represents eternal life, or a key of life. The letter being inside this key may indicate that whatever is written on the letter is going to save the island's inhabitants from its impending doom. Because Dogen asked for names, it would probably mean that at least one of their names was written on the piece of paper, indicating that that person would be the key for life. It's Saeed because his resurrection, as we'll see in a little bit, would bring hope to the island. And also, the ankh is a symbol of resurrection too.